Alright, so in a surprising turn of events, the One Punch Man webcomic has returned from its hiatus. The last chapter that we got was 141, which came out in like July of 2021, so like almost 2 years of a hiatus for this thing. And I know sometime last year I made a video talking about the possibility that the webcomic is just over for good because One had announced that he was making yet another series in verses. And sorry that I haven't been covering that, guys. There's just not enough time in the day yet, but I'd like to cover it in the future at some point. But the webcomic is back. I'm not going to tell you it's going to come back permanently, like on a weekly or monthly basis at this point, because there's never been a set or consistent schedule for it. One just makes the webcomic when he feels like it. So the next chapter could come out tomorrow or in another 2 years. So just keep that in mind going forward. And, you know, since my last review, like I said, almost 2 years ago, there's been a lot of channel growth since that time too. So there's a lot of new people here who maybe aren't necessarily familiar with what's going on with the webcomic or have been following the webcomic but just forget what's going on completely. Because also keep in mind that the webcomic has a different continuity than what the manga has. They're more or less kind of following the same overall story, but things play out differently. Some things happen, some things don't happen, and also characters behave differently and have somewhat different personalities than what we know them to have in the manga, such as Genos in the webcomic, which the story is currently following. Now, before I get into what's going on in the latest chapter that just dropped today, which is 142, let me just catch you up to speed on what has been going on in the last couple chapters of the webcomic. So it's been following the Neo Heroes arc, which actually just started in the manga, and it's coming to its, I don't know, final act or so, or at least approaching like the big third act of the arc, I guess you could say, or the saga. And it came to the point of where Genos had finally reunited with Drive Knight. This was the first time that they had actually met since Drive Knight had told Genos that Metal Knight was his enemy way back after Boros invaded. Again, things play out different in the webcomic. This is actually the, I think, second full time in the webcomic that we actually see Drive Knight like speak. And things play out very similar to how they did in chapter 119 of the manga. Except this time, instead of Drive Knight gaslighting Sekengar, he is now gaslighting Genos. And I'm pretty sure this is also going to play out in the manga eventually, like in a few years, because it's very important. But if you know my thoughts on Drive Knight, I'll just speed run them for you right now. I think Drive Knight is the mad cyborg. And he's been hiding in plain sight this whole time, and he is lying to Genos in order to trick him into becoming subservient to him so that he can control Genos via hacking or whatever, and then use him as, you know, a member of the organization, which I think Drive Knight is probably the leader of, if not at the minimum, just a part of it and one of their head soldiers. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Phantom. The Phantom wallet was designed with security in mind while still allowing easy access to all your cards. These ultra thin wallets are the perfect solution if you're looking to downsize your big old bulky wallet. Guys, I love the Phantom wallet. They're so aesthetic, and the mechanism that pops your cards is so smooth. But another reason why I absolutely love the Phantom wallet is because of their modular attachments. To the Phantom X wallet, you can add one of 7 attachments, like a coin holder, cash holder, ID holder, silicone band, AirTag holder, key holder, and smart tracker. Now for me, I got the Phantom X with the key holder modular attachment, and this is absolutely a game changer. I don't have to carry around a keychain and a wallet anymore because they're all together. Now for my girlfriend, I got the Phantom X with the regular size, which holds up to 13 cards because she has like a lot more stuff than me that she needs to carry. And she also got the cash holder modular attachment on hers and works seamlessly. So guys, if you're interested in changing your wallet game forever, check out the Phantom wallet. Link will be in the description. There's also free US shipping for orders over $45 and free Canada and US shipping for Phantom X wallets. Thanks, guys. But Drive Knight lying to Genos, at least in my opinion, it's not revealed that he is lying. One, the author wants us to, I guess, believe Drive Knight here and for us to be suspicious of Metal Knight. But anyway, Drive Knight, who, like I said, is lying to Genos in this sequence, in my opinion, tells him that Metal Knight is like the big bad of the series series essentially, and that everything that he has been doing has been purposely for the sake of him taking over the world essentially. Like all of the monsters that we've been seeing showing up with like augmented abilities and cyborg stuff in them and chips, as well as the cyborgification in the Neo Heroes, is all because of Metal Knight. He also claims that Metal Knight had created the Mad Cyborg, which of course led to destroying Genos' hometown and led to his and Kuseno's collaboration, as well as, Genos' main motivation here. Now, I think that part is true, that Metal Knight did accidentally create the Mad Cyborg, who is Drive Knight, possibly his son or something like that, and that's a story for another time. I'll have the video linked at the end of this video if you want to watch that. It's like 30 minutes long, but it ultimately ends with Drive Knight telling him that Metal Knight has like an army of robots on standby and he's just waiting for the right time to attack and take over. So now that Genos has had like this influx of information in him, he kind of gets overwhelmed by it, and instead of just immediately joining with Drive Knight to take down Metal Knight, he says, I need to think about it. So he goes with Saitama to finally meet Dr. Kuseno, because Dr. Kuseno had been requesting to see Saitama. In the webcomics continuity, Dr. Kuseno hasn't met Saitama yet, like he did in the Hot Pot chapter. I think it was like 89 or 88 or something. I forget what the Viz numbering is, maybe 87. But they eventually go to meet Dr. Kuseno, and Saitama winds up trusting Kuseno because he fixes his Game Boy, and he winds up putting Saitama like in this chamber thing that's recording his data while he sleeps. And while this is happening, 3 super powerful robots from the organization show up and kill Dr. Kuseno. Genos, being angered by this, eventually kills all of them himself, and Saitama wakes up from the capsule and winds up taking out the rest of the robots that were there. Then as Dr. Kuseno is dying, he tells him that he has one last armor upgrade and system upgrade for him, and that it's also super powerful, and then he was hiding it away as a secret weapon. After Dr. Kuseno dies, Genos goes to where the secret upgrade in armor is and equips himself. So now Genos is the strongest that he's ever been. Now also keep in mind that Genos is under the assumption that these organization robots are controlled by Metal Knight. Therefore, he thinks Metal Knight has killed Dr. Kuseno. This is also, in my opinion, a part of Drive Knight's plan to further convince Genos to join his side. Have those robots go kill Dr. Kuseno, framing Metal Knight. Because as we said before, he was still on the fence about it after Metal Knight had tried to gaslight him and overflooded him with all that information. Then he decides that he's immediately going to go to where Metal Knight's research facility is, and Saitama decides to join him as well. But as they're making their way there, suddenly hordes of all of these robots show up in the city nearby and start attacking. And that's where the webcomic left off for like almost 2 years at this point. And we're led to believe that this is supposed to be Metal Knight's Legion of Robots, but of course this is not. In my opinion, these are reverse engineered Metal Knight robots made by the organization with data and technology that they were able to salvage from the robots that Saitama destroyed way back when we found out that the Hero Association was remade. This actually recently played out in the manga continuity as well. Another reason I'm pretty sure these are not Metal Knight's robots, because a couple chapters back, we see what Metal Knight's latest robot looks like in his room, and they have different eyes and a different body. His, of course, always have 3 eyes, which is iconic to Metal Knight, but also iconic to the Egyptian god Thoth. But that's, a whole story for other time. You can check it out in that video I was talking about in case that stuff angers you and you don't want me to talk about here. But we see that these robots have the singular eyes, which of course is synonymous with the organization. So now that we're finally coming back, we can see what is going on with these robots, and yeah, they're blasting up the city, and Genos, as we established was nearby, comes in and mounts a counteroffense against them. And like we also mentioned, Genos is now in his ultimate upgrade here, the secret final armor and system upgrade that Kuseno presented him with. And before this, he was really powerful already. Like those 3 organization robots that he was able to defeat were all dragon level, and he took them down all by himself. They eventually got to the point of where they all combined, and they were possibly even high dragon at that point. It's debatable. But Genos at this point could feasibly be high dragon, or maybe even above dragon in power. There's no way to know for sure yet, but he is implied to be particularly powerful right now, because as we see, he just melts through these robots. Like, none of them even remotely present Genos with a challenge. Like, it's just a slaughter. In an awesome sequence, one has definitely improved his skills in the time that he has taken off, and it eventually ends with Genos just being in bloodlusted mode, almost punching Saitama through the smoke, mistaking him for possibly another robot. And we see Saitama's eyes open, seeing Genos about to land the shot, but then he does, the super fast Saitama appears behind you thing, like what they were doing before when they were training training, in the beginning of the series. And I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a callback to chapter 108 of the webcomic, which is actually going to be adapted in the manga pretty soon, because we saw Genos training with Saitama at this point, where he just had his lightning core form. And when he activated it, it was kind of shining in Saitama's eyes, and he was like, it's so bright, and he was closing his eyes. And Genos was about to just come up on him and land a clean strike in his face, but Saitama was so unbothered by this and found Genos so unthreatening that he didn't even bother opening his eyes. And Genos knew this, and he was just demoralized by this completely. Like, he was like, yeah, we could just stop right here. I'm just gonna wind up dirtying your clothes. There's no point anymore. But now we see how far Genos has come, and that he's so powerful that Saitama's eyes are not only open to see the punch coming, but he avoids it. And he's like, man, you're strong, Genos. Kuseno's final upgrade was a total success, huh? Then Genos comes back to his senses, and he's like, Sensei, let's split up. You eliminate the enemies in the city. I'll attack Metal Knight's research facility. And Saitama's like, all right, got it. Be careful. This is like a new refocused Genos, because he's heading towards his ultimate goal here, or at least he thinks that he is. And also, this is a way for Saitama to be away from everything that is about to transpire, because if he was there, it would kind of completely lower the stakes and diffuse the situation immediately. And also, this is something that Genos kind of has to take care of himself anyway. The whole Mad Cyborg storyline is essentially going to wrap up here. So then we see Genos fly off, and he runs into this monster, and he realizes that it's just not a normal monster. It's like a robot soldier hybrid monster modified with bioweapons. And he assumes that this is Metal Knight, of course, because that's what Drive Knight told him that he does. But this is, of course, work of the organization. We also saw this monster, I think back in chapter 127. His name is like Meat Dumpling, and he's a demon level. He's the monster that either killed or seriously maimed Zaditz, that rich guy who was partly funding the Neo Heroes and became a Neo leader. And he was wearing like that mech suit, which ultimately proved useless. But maybe it's been augmented since then, and now it's dragon level. I don't know. But Genos just, easily slices through this thing, just showing, again, how powerful he is. And that's where the chapter ends. Genos on his way to Metal Knight. And what I think is going to happen here is what I talked about in that video I made, where I talk about Drive Knight being the Mad Cyborg. It's ultimately going to come down to Genos and Drive Knight encountering Metal Knight, and Metal Knight telling Genos the truth. That Drive Knight is in fact the Mad Cyborg, or something like that. I'm not entirely sure if Metal Knight fully knows yet, but one way or another, the truth will come out, and it will be revealed that Metal Knight is not actually the bad guy here, and then it's actually Drive Knight. And I don't think that will be the end of the storyline. Like, I think this will lead to Drive Knight becoming a disciple of God one way or another. Yeah, I know it sounds like nonsense, but it all makes sense, guys. Trust me. And that's pretty much it for the video. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.